Hello, this is Chris Bennett. Join us weekly at Pot TV on the Burning Shiva Hour as we explore the roots of cannabis culture throughout history and around the globe. On pottv.net, home of the herb.
Hi there, I'm Mark Emery of Mark Emery Direct Seeds, of course, and in this room we have the first Sensimilla edition in North America of the Aussie Bushman, which won first place in the 2000 Nimbin Cup. And these are spectacular. If you look at these frosty resinous colas popping up all around me, really large flowering growth for just three and a half weeks into flowering. Imagine how they're going to look at 8 weeks. They're going to be stunning. And these seeds are available from Irish Rose Seed Company at only $45 for 10 seeds. And that's spectacular for a cup winner out of Australia. It won second place in North America at our smoking test last year. And I think you're going to find this one of the most adorable sativas you can have in your home collection. And I urge you to get the Aussie Bushman from Mark Emery Direct Seeds. That's me. And good gardening.
Okay, hi, this is Chris Bennett with the Burning Shiva Hour, and you're watching Pot TV, and we're very honored today to have a special guest, one of the most stone philosophers ever, Robert Anton Wilson. Hello, Mr. Wilson.
Hello there.
Just first off, I'd like to say what a personal influence you've been on my own cosmology. I read your Illuminatus trilogy about 8 or 9 years ago, Cosmic Trigger, Prometheus Rising, Ishtar Rising, countless other books of yours, and I just think you made a really great contribution to coming consciousness, and I'm really honored to have you on the show.
Well, thank you very much. I don't think I'm all that important, but it's nice to hear all those nice things.
Huh. Well, I guess since this is Pot TV, I'd really like to ask you some questions concerning marijuana. Now, it was funny for me, you write about synchronicity and whatnot, and I myself, as well as other people, have felt pulled into your synchronistic loop. And years ago, like about 11 years ago, when I first started studying about hemp and the use of cannabis in religions and stuff, I mistakenly kind of stumbled upon what I felt was a Masonic connection, and I started collecting quotes from George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and guys like that regarding hemp, and I was telling somebody about this, and they said, oh, have you ever read Robert Anton Wilson's Illuminatus trilogy? And I hadn't heard of you at that time, so I said, no. And I picked it up, and the guy in the story had been collecting the exact same quotes that I had collected, and I was like, wow. And I noticed that you had the Freemasons using money as hemp script in the story as well. And this is like, 30 years ago that you wrote that book, so it kind of preempted the whole hemp revolution by a good 20 years. And I was wondering if you had, what made you make that connection yourself?
Well, actually, it was due to the Fitzhugh Ludlow Memorial Library that one of the curators there told me about Washington's references to hemp in his letters, and I looked it up, and I found Washington was always hounding the gardener about the hemp crop.
Huh, fascinating. Now, recently also, you and your Bride of the Illuminatis, you said you have an event take place April 23rd, I think 2003 in Vancouver, British Columbia, where we're recording this show, and it ends up splitting North America to the Christian and non-Christian United States. And this is also another kind of what I thought was a curious synchronistic link. For here in Vancouver, where there's a very, very powerful marijuana legalization movement afoot. I don't know how familiar you are with it. But, and it was pretty much initiated on April 23rd, 1993, when we all of a sudden went from having 30 or 40 people at a rally to having a rally of about 5,000. And some young fella, a high school student, picked this date independently. And then later on, we found out that it was the feast day of El Qadar, the patron saint of cannabis. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. El Qadar, the patron saint, shares the feast day with St. George. And this year...
it's also Shakespeare's birthday.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this year when we found out that Shakespeare may have used cannabis, I interviewed Professor Francis Thackeray from South Africa. And he was suggesting, based on readings of the sonnets, that Shakespeare was making occult references to cannabis. And once he was able to get some pipes from the Shakespeare Trust, test them, and they actually tested positive for cannabis resins, you know. And of course, I'm sure you're very familiar with the whole idea that Francis Bacon and Shakespeare could be one person as well, which again kind of brings us back to the Rosicrucian Masonic type schools.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah. Have you ever read Rabelais at all, or as well, or?
Oh yeah, he mentions a drug called Pantagruel, which certainly sounds a lot like marijuana.
Yeah, he as well also mentions the fly agaric twice by name, and you know, uses it in the context of the salamander, which is, you know, of course, the alchemical reference there. So it's kind of an interesting thing. What is your feelings on what's happening with cannabis today in society, and things like the Bush's administration set, like, you know, really a war against medical marijuana down near where you're at in L.A. there. They recently sent in 30 federal DEA agents to raid the L.A. Medical Marijuana Buyers Exchange, which had been operating for some years under the, you know, condolence and compassion of the mayor and other members of council over there.
Well, it looks like we're headed for another civil war. The question is, do the states have the right to make their own laws? Do the people have the right to make their own laws, or do we just have to follow the orders from Washington? Washington is intent that we got to follow their orders, and we have no say in the matter. You know, the way the L.A. Cannabis club came about was because the people of California voted by an overwhelming majority to legalize marijuana for medical purposes. And the Clinton administration and Bushware 2.0 are both holding to the position that the people have no right to have any say over their own medical care. Only the government can decide.
Yeah, that's terrible. Now, having such a long history of interest in Masonic situations and whatnot, what do you think of, like, you know, claims of George Bush Sr.'s involvement in Skull and Bones, and I imagine George Jr.'s as well? Do you think that these are actual occult organizations that, you know, like, practice, you know, rituals along the line of magical rituals, or do you think it's more of like an old boys network?
I think it's more like an old boys network.
Yeah. In the end, do you really think, like, there's, like, do you think that they're conspiring against marijuana for any particular reason, or do you think that it's just they just don't understand it really, so they're afraid of what they don't know?
My opinion on that has changed over the years. It seems to me now that they know damned well that medical marijuana will have to be accepted eventually. And they are trying to forestall it until they get a medical product that can be monopolized. So you can't grow into your backyard a cannabis derivative that can be put out by a large pharmaceutical company. And then the government will announce it's okay if the doctor prescribed it, you get it from a druggist, but you can't grow your own. What they're afraid of is people taking control of their own health. What they want is to continue making us pay incredibly huge prices for things that are ridiculously cheap, actually. And since we don't have a national health plan here, that means we need more and more insurance to cover our medical bills. And I mean, they're willing to kill us to increase their profits. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, basically, you know, it is pretty much a genocide of one culture against another, you know. Are you using medical marijuana yourself these days? Or if it's a bad question, you don't feel like you have to answer it, you know?
Oh, the hell, I'll answer it. I use it. I've got post-polio syndrome, and it's very helpful.
Nice. Okay.
Well, I'm using it until they come and take it away from me.
There you go. Well, another brave soldier. We're just going to take a real short break, and we'll be back with Robert Anton Wilson, one of my heroes. On the West Coast.
This is Dana Larson of Cannabis Culture Magazine. If you like pot radio, you'll love cannabis culture. We're celebrating 5 years of bringing enlightenment and good pot to the world, so check us out and subscribe today. You can subscribe by giving us a call at 604-669-9069 or check us out online at www.cannabisculture.com.
Okay, we're back with Robert Anton Wilson, and we've been speaking about marijuana, the occult, the government, and many other issues. Now, Mr. Wilson, you've talked about the use of entheogens, cannabis, and other psychedelics and whatnot in your own journey into consciousness, I suppose, a new form of consciousness. What do you feel about cannabis and its effects on the different mental drives of humanity and its potential for a conscious shift?
Well, I think marijuana, by and large, it tends to make people mellow, more humorous, and a bit more detached and philosophical. By and large, not always. I mean, Hell's Angels uses marijuana quite a bit, and they're not pacifists.
And the Assassins.
But by and large, I think marijuana is a mellow-out drug. And I think that's all to the good, since the world seems to have an excess of people who are seriously pissed off these days. Not only are Arabs trying to blow up the United States, but a Jewish group was just busted for trying to blow things up. I don't know what their grudge is, but everybody is seriously pissed off. Everybody has a grudge against somebody else.
Yeah.
And we really need a lot of mellowing out on this planet.
Yeah, that's for sure, especially right now with world situations looking worse than they ever have. What are your feelings on that? Do you see any way out, or do you see the problems between Islam and Judaism and evangelical Christianity so deep-rooted and so unstoppable that there's forces coming into play here that have to roll out, or do you think that there's a way to redirect this energy into more benevolent means?
Well, I would certainly hope so, but what I, at present, expect is that fundamentalist Christianity, represented by Bush, fundamentalist Judaism, represented by Sharon, and fundamentalist Islam, represented by Osama bin Laden, are going to bomb the hell and blast the hell out of the world for quite a while, until everybody gets disgusted with fundamentalist religion in general, and only the liberal religions will survive.
Yeah, well,
that's my long-range optimism.
Yeah, well, that's I suppose for me too. You know, I think it's information and knowledge that will eventually put away with these superstitions. But in many ways, I look at the Islamic Jihad and the belief of Osama bin Laden and other Islamic people in that. And then I look at the whole Christian evangelical movement, Hal Lindsey and Jerry Falwell, and we can pull Reagan and the Bush clan into that belief system as well. And unfortunately, a large majority of North America. And it's almost, to me, it seems like we're getting the collective consciousness is getting pulled into the apocalyptic paradigm of these fundamentalist faiths. And they're starting to project their beliefs back out onto the actual world and dragging us into their own Armageddon.
Yeah, but on the other hand, science is making so many breakthroughs every week now. I mean, progress has accelerated to such an extent that I think that technology, which determines the structure of a society, is going to be changing faster and faster. And all the fundamentalists will look more and more out of touch, out of date. They look like refugees from the Middle Ages, and nobody takes them seriously. Eventually, at least that's the hope I have.
Yeah, well, that's the hope I have too. But I guess it's just such an intense world we're living in, especially in the last few years. Well,
look at cloning, for instance. That's such a major breakthrough. Right away, Bush announced they're going to pass a law against it in the United States. Well, that won't control the rest of the world. The research will go ahead. The United States will just fall further behind the scientific world. And eventually, the United States is going to fall so far behind, they'll have to make a big effort to catch up, which means they'll get more like Canada and Europe and the civilized world.
Well, one would hope, but with the new terrorist bills and whatnot in the U.S., which is worse than the Iron Curtain in many respects, it seems to me like it's almost hopeless to regain any ground. As a marijuana activist and knowing a lot of marijuana activists in the U.S., people feel like the movement's been put back 50 years, you know, with what's been going on.
Yeah, well, you know, even Franz Kafka, who wrote the best surrealist satires on totalitarianism, he didn't include the piss police. I think he might have thought of it and decided, oh, that's too ridiculous, it will make my book seem absurd. But now we've actually, in a country which in the Constitution guarantees no searches and seizures without a probable cause, they're doing random searches and seizures of people's bladders. Even the inside of our bodies aren't safe from the government probers and priors anymore.
Ideas now, you know, like they're saying any form of dissent is almost, you know, you're going to be labeled a terrorist if you start talking out against war and things like that. It's a scary
I find that absolutely hilarious that they are trying to push a line of anybody who's a pacifist is not identified with terrorism. Of course, pacifism is the exact opposite from terrorism. Besides, this isn't a war against terrorism anyway, it's a war against some terrorists.
Yeah, that's right.
A real war against terrorism, they start by bombing the CIA in Langtree. They are the biggest terrorists in the world for the last 50 years.
Yeah, well, they've been training all the other terrorists out there, you know. I think about the relation.
They even trained Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, you know, like the last big few, Saddam Hussein, former American ally, Manuel Noriega. I seen the pictures of him and George Sr. on the couch, you know, buddy. It's a pretty corrupt regime that's in there now. It's a bad situation for everybody. It's a bad situation for marijuana, but they say it's always darkest before the dawn, and like you, I'm an optimist. I feel that things like the internet, the spread of information, spread of knowledge, like men like yourself who've done so much to educate so many people, that there is hope. You know, I'm a Gnostic. I believe that knowledge is key, and that's a big thing. But I am worried about the situation in the world. I think it's more important than ever for people to speak out.
Oh, absolutely. They're trying to terrorize this country, in the United States. They're trying to terrorize us all into being afraid to speak out. That just aggravates me, and I'm getting more and more extreme in my statements, just to show them they can't frighten me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us here at Pod TV, Mr. Wilson, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk to you again at some point.
Okay, and have a great day.
Hey, you too. Thanks. Stay high. Bye-bye.
She was a good girl until she visited dopebeanscom picture. Hey kid, you want to buy a book? Here, I got something to show you. Oh,
welcome to dopebeans.com. We provide you with information that is safe, profitable, and productive. Learn safety techniques that will help keep your plants, shrooms, and laboratories clean, well-maintained, and hidden from any nosy neighbors. Be more profitable by knowing the best varieties for you, best techniques, and the best maintenance for your operation. Want to increase your productivity? We have books and videos that will show you how to utilize your space more efficiently, written by professionals in the field. So now that you have the information, and you know where to get it, and you know where to find it, be wise and buy from dopebeans.com for all your growing knowledge and esoteric wisdom.